The massive Ravagdor warship hung in the darkness of space, its metallic hull reflecting the distant light of Earth's sun. Commander Grok stood at the bridge's main viewport, his towering frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. His species had conquered 1,000 worlds, and Earth would be no different. "Report," he ordered, his deep voice echoing through the command center. The ship's chief scout, Reed, approached with quick steps. Like all Ravagers, he stood nearly 8 feet tall, his muscular frame enhanced by centuries of genetic engineering. "Commander, our initial scans are complete. The planet called Earth shows no signs of faster-than-light technology. Their weapons are primitive, mostly chemical explosives and basic nuclear devices." Grok's mouth twisted into what passed for a smile among his kind. "Their physical capabilities. Even more disappointing, Commander. The dominant species, they call themselves humans, are physically inferior to even the weakest spacefaring races we've encountered. Average height, less than 6 feet. Muscle density, barely half of ours. They lack natural armor, have no enhanced healing, and their reaction times are tragically slow." The bridge crew exchanged looks of amusement. This would be the easiest conquest in recent memory. "Show me their military capabilities," Grok commanded. The main screen lit up with images of Earth's defensive systems. Tanks, aircraft, naval vessels, all painfully outdated by galactic standards. Their most advanced weapons could barely scratch Ravagdor battle armor. Their global military communication channels are primitive and easily intercepted, Reed continued. They still use radio waves and digital encryption that our systems cracked within minutes. We've been monitoring their broadcasts for the past 3 solar cycles. Grok nodded, already bored. "And their response to our presence. That's the strange part, Commander." Reed's expression showed a hint of confusion. "They've surely detected us by now, but there's been no reaction. No emergency broadcasts, no military mobilization, no attempts at communication. Nothing." For the first time, a slight frown crossed Grok's face. In all his years of conquest, he'd never encountered this. Usually, primitive species either tried to communicate or immediately launched whatever weapons they had. This silence was unusual. "Perhaps they're paralyzed with fear," suggested another officer. "Or they've accepted their fate," added a third. Grok shook off his momentary concern. "Prepare the first wave. 10,000 warriors should be more than enough to secure their largest population centers. Target their military installations first, then government facilities. Standard conquest protocol." As the crew rushed to comply, Grok returned his gaze to the blue planet below. Such a prize, with its vast oceans and abundant resources. The Ravager Empire would put it to better use than these primitives ever could. "Commander," Reed interrupted his thoughts, "should we send the standard warning broadcast? Give them a chance to surrender." Grok laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "Why waste the energy? Their civilization will be dust by the next solar rotation. The strong consume the weak. That is the way of the universe." Throughout the massive ship, warriors prepared for battle. They checked their plasma weapons, powered up their battle armor, and boarded their dropships. Each warrior was a perfect specimen of Ravagdor might, the product of generations of genetic enhancement and combat training. As the first wave of dropships detached from the mothership, Grok recorded a brief message for the Imperial Archives. Imperial date 47,299.3. The conquest of Sol 3, designation Earth, has begun. The native species shows no significant defensive capabilities. Expected resistance, minimal. Expected casualties, 0. Glory to the Empire. He ended the recording with a satisfied grunt. Another routine conquest for the archives, another primitive world added to the Empire's collection. How wrong he was. In the darkness of Earth's underground bunkers, in hardened facilities deep beneath the surface, humanity had already sprung into action. They weren't panicking. They weren't paralyzed with fear. They were executing a plan centuries in the making. The silence wasn't surrender. It was the calm before the storm. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Commander James Anderson stood before a wall of screens. Each one showed a different view of the Ravager ships entering Earth's atmosphere. His expression remained calm, even as red dots appeared across the global map, marking alien landing zones. "Sir," Lieutenant Rogers approached with a tablet. "All cities in the primary target zones have been successfully evacuated. Operation Ghost Protocol is proceeding as planned." Anderson nodded, his gray eyes fixed on the screens. 20 years of preparation had led to this moment. Since humans first detected the Ravagers' long-range scouts a decade ago, they had been getting ready. Not with big weapons or spaceships, but with something far more powerful: information. "Status of the underground networks?" he asked. "All green, sir. Civilian bunkers are sealed and supplied. Military units are in position. The Ravagers won't find a single strategic target where they expect it to be." In another part of the facility, Dr. Emma Thompson watched the alien ships through a different set of screens. Her team of psychologists and cultural analysts had spent years studying the intercepted Ravager communications. They knew how the aliens thought, what they expected, and most importantly, what they feared. "They're following their standard invasion pattern," she noted, marking points on a digital map. "Just like they did on their last 12 conquered worlds. They really don't think we're worth a special strategy." The room's speakers crackled. "Dr. Thompson." Anderson's voice came through. "Are you seeing this? They're landing their troops in empty cities." "Yes, Commander. Their confusion is visible even from our satellite feeds. They've never encountered this before. A species that simply vanishes. Across the globe, in cities and towns targeted by the Ravagers, streets lay empty. Shopping malls stood silent. Office buildings cast shadows over vacant parking lots. The only movement came from paper trash blown by the wind, and the occasional stray cat darting between alleys. The first Ravager dropships landed in what they thought was New York's military district. Their warriors, clad in gleaming battle armor, emerged ready for resistance. Instead, they found abandoned buildings and quiet streets. Their heavy footsteps echoed off empty walls as they swept through facilities that had been carefully stripped of anything useful weeks ago. In London, another group of Ravager warriors broke into what their scans showed was a major government building. They found dusty offices and blank computer screens. Every hard drive, every piece of paper, every scrap of useful information had been removed. Back in the mountain facility, Anderson received reports from hidden observation posts around the world. "The Ravagers are starting to spread out," an agent reported. "They're searching wider areas, looking for the population. Some units are showing signs of frustration." "Good," Anderson replied. "Frustration leads to mistakes. Dr. Thompson, are we ready for Phase 2? Emma checked her data one last time. "Yes, Commander." "The Ravagers believe in overwhelming force and quick victories. The longer we deny them a target, the more likely they are to break formation and make tactical errors." Anderson allowed himself a small smile. "Send the signal. All units maintain Ghost Protocol. Let our visitors wear themselves out searching empty buildings." Throughout the world's cities, hidden sensors tracked the Ravager troops as they moved. Each step they took was monitored, each frustrated communication intercepted. Humanity watched and waited as the mighty alien warriors, with all their strength and advanced technology, found themselves fighting against something they'd never trained for: nothing. In his command ship above Earth, Commander Grok received increasingly confused reports from his ground forces. His warriors had found no resistance because they had found no one at all. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something unfamiliar: doubt. Deep underground, humanity prepared its next move. The empty cities were just the beginning. The real battle was about to start, and only one side knew the rules of engagement. The Ravager patrol moved through the empty streets of Chicago, their heavy boots crunching on broken glass. 3 days of searching had found nothing but empty buildings and silent streets. Unit leader Thresh kicked over a fallen trash can in frustration, his strength sending it flying through a shop window. "This is wrong," he growled to his squad. "Their scans showed millions of life forms in this city. They can't just disappear." A sudden movement caught his eye. Just a shadow, there and gone in an instant. He raised his plasma rifle and signaled his warriors to stop. Their armor systems showed nothing on thermal scans. That was the first mistake, relying on technology. In the darkness of the city's underground tunnel system, Tom Wilson watched the alien patrol through a specially designed periscope. He smiled as he pressed a button on his radio, sending a silent signal to other resistance cells. The trap was ready. Above ground, Thresh's squad continued their sweep. Their 8-foot frames and enhanced muscles made them feel invincible in their advanced armor. That was their second mistake, overconfidence. A soft whistling sound filled the air. The Ravager warriors looked up, their enhanced senses detecting the noise too late. Dozens of small drones, barely larger than birds, dropped from the surrounding buildings. Before the aliens could react, the drones released clouds of fine powder into the air. "Primitive projectiles," Thresh laughed, watching the powder bounce harmlessly off his armor. He didn't notice the powder settling into the joints of his suit, mixing with the lubricants, starting a chemical reaction that would slowly but surely seize up every moving part. Underground, Wilson spoke quietly into his radio. Phase 1 complete. Moving to Phase 2. Across the city, other resistance cells sprang into action. They had studied the Ravagers' patrol patterns, learned their weaknesses, and prepared accordingly. The aliens' strength meant nothing in the face of human cunning. Thresh's squad continued their patrol, unaware that each step was becoming slightly harder, their armor joints slightly stiffer. By the time they noticed, it was too late. Within minutes, the mighty warriors found themselves barely able to move, their advanced battle suits turned into rigid prisons. "Status report." Thresh barked into his comm unit. Only static answered. The powder had another purpose. Its metallic content created a field that blocked their communications. They were alone, immobilized, and cut off from support. From the shadows of doorways and windows, figures emerged. Humans, dressed in simple combat gear, moved silently toward the trapped aliens. They carried no energy weapons or advanced technology, just simple tools and determined expressions. "Impossible," Thresh snarled, struggling to move in his frozen armor. "You are weak. We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy." Tom Wilson stepped forward, his voice calm. "Strength isn't everything. You came here expecting to find scared primitives. Instead, you found humans who have spent their entire history learning to defeat stronger enemies." Around the city, similar scenes played out. Ravager patrols fell into carefully prepared traps. Some found their weapons suddenly useless, affected by localized EMP devices. Others discovered that their superior strength meant nothing in areas where humans had altered the terrain to their advantage. In his command ship, Grok received increasingly panicked reports. His warriors, the pride of the Ravager Empire, were being defeated not by superior force, but by tricks and traps they never saw coming. "Impossible," he muttered, watching more units go dark on his tactical display. "They are nothing but primitives." Deep underground, Commander Anderson watched the same tactical display, but with satisfaction. "Send word to all cells," he ordered. "Operation Achilles is a success. Begin Phase 4. The humans had studied their mythology well. Like the ancient Greeks, they knew that every mighty warrior had a weakness. The Ravagers' weakness was their inability to understand that true strength comes in many forms. And this was just the beginning. In a hidden laboratory beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Robert Miller watched through a microscope as common Earth bacteria consumed a sample of Ravager tissue. Next to him, his computer screen showed live feeds from cities where the aliens had established their main bases. "It's working," he said into his secure communication line. The modified bacteria are affecting their systems exactly as we predicted. Commander Anderson's voice crackled through the speaker. Casualties. None among our people. The bacteria are harmless to Earth life forms. But the Ravagers. Miller paused, watching another tissue sample dissolve. Their biological structure can't handle what we consider normal Earth microbes. We just had to help the bacteria along a little. Above ground, the mighty alien warriors were facing an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't fight, and couldn't understand. Their advanced medical systems had no defense against organisms that had evolved on Earth for millions of years. In his ship, Commander Grok received increasingly desperate reports. His warriors were falling ill with mysterious symptoms: weakness, fever, confusion. Their enhanced immune systems, designed to fight known galactic diseases, were useless against Earth's microscopic life. Impossible, he roared, smashing his fist into a control panel. These primitives are using biological weapons. Not weapons, Commander, his medical officer corrected. Just their natural bacteria, somehow optimized to affect our biology. We never considered. He stopped, coughing violently. Meanwhile, in a different kind of battle, human hackers launched their own attack. The Ravagers had thought their computer systems were unbreakable, protected by encryption far beyond human technology. They were wrong. In a secure facility in Tokyo, Lisa Wong led a team of cyber warfare experts. Their fingers flew across keyboards as they exploited weaknesses in the alien computer systems, weaknesses the Ravagers never thought a primitive species would find. Their arrogance is their weakness, Lisa said, as her team gained access to another alien system. They never updated their cyber defenses because they thought we were too primitive to be a threat. One by one, Ravager systems began to fail. Their weapons lost power. Their communication networks filled with confusing signals. Their navigation systems showed false information. The mighty alien army, with all its advanced technology, was being defeated by humans typing on keyboards. Back in his command ship, Grok watched in horror as his invasion force fell apart. The warriors who weren't sick were fighting failing equipment. Those still healthy and properly equipped were falling into human traps. And now his own ship's systems were beginning to malfunction. How? He demanded. How are they doing this? On his main screen, text appeared in the Ravager language. You thought strength meant only muscle. You thought advancement meant only technology. You never considered that evolution on a hostile world would make us stronger than you in ways you couldn't imagine. In the Nevada lab, Dr. Miller received new data from field sensors. The bacterial attack is reaching critical mass, he reported. Their immune systems are completely overwhelmed. They never developed defenses against Earth organisms because they thought they were above such primitive life forms. Commander Anderson nodded from his command center. And our cyber warfare. Lisa's voice joined the conversation. Their entire command and control network will be ours in hours. They based all their security on brute force computing power. They never thought about the creative ways we could bypass it. The Ravagers had come expecting to find weak primitives. Instead, they found a species that had spent its entire existence adapting, surviving, and overcoming challenges. Every primitive aspect of Earth that they had dismissed, its microscopic life, its hostile environment, its technological gap, had become a weapon in humanity's hands. As another Ravager unit fell silent, Anderson allowed himself a small smile. Begin final phase, he ordered. It's time to show them what humanity can really do when we're threatened. The real battle was just beginning. Dr. Emma Thompson stood in the control room, watching screens that showed Ravager warriors jumping at shadows. Her team had spent years studying the aliens' cultural broadcasts, learning their deepest fears and beliefs. Now it was time to use that knowledge. Begin Operation Nightmare, she commanded. Her team started their carefully planned psychological attack. In what remained of the Ravager forces, strange things began to happen. Their comm systems, already damaged by human hackers, started playing sounds that the aliens' cultural database identified as death omens from their ancient history. Every warrior grew up hearing stories about these sounds. They meant doom was coming. They're so focused on strength and honor, Emma explained to Commander Anderson, that they never developed defenses against psychological warfare. Their entire culture is built on facing enemies head-on. They don't know how to handle an enemy that attacks their minds. In Dallas, a group of Ravager warriors found themselves surrounded by holograms of their ancient demons, images pulled directly from their own mythology. The mighty aliens, who had never shown fear in physical combat, froze in terror. Their bodies were strong, but their minds were unprepared for their worst nightmares coming to life. Please understand. Emma's voice echoed through their comm systems in perfect Ravager language. We know everything about you. Your fears, your beliefs, your weaknesses. We've been studying you for years. In his command ship, Grok watched his warriors' morale crumble. The humans weren't just attacking bodies and machines anymore. They were attacking minds. His soldiers reported seeing impossible things, hearing forbidden sounds, receiving messages that seemed to come from their own gods. How can they know these things? He demanded. These are secrets we've never shared with any species. The answer came in his own language, appearing on every screen. We listened. We learned. We understood. While you watched our weapons, we studied your souls. Underground, Tom Wilson led another strike team. They didn't carry weapons. They carried speakers playing specific frequencies that the Ravager nervous system couldn't handle. Frequencies that humans had discovered by studying captured alien biology. Their arrogance made them predictable, Tom reported back to command. They never thought we'd be smart enough to use their own physical advantages against them. Their enhanced hearing is now their weakness. Across every battlefield, the psychological assault continued. Human forces used everything they had learned about Ravager culture and biology to create an environment of constant fear and confusion. The aliens' military discipline began to crack. In the Mountain Command Center, Anderson watched the enemy forces start to break apart. Dr. Thompson, report. Their command structure is collapsing, Emma replied. They're trained to fight physical battles, to die with honor. But this, she gestured at the screens showing panicked Ravager troops. This kind of warfare doesn't exist in their culture. They have no defense against an enemy that turns their own minds against them. The aliens' proud warriors, who had conquered 1,000 worlds through strength and technology, were being defeated by their own fears. Humans had turned their rigid honor code and cultural beliefs into weapons more effective than any bomb. Send the final message, Anderson ordered. Every Ravager comm system received the same transmission. You came to our world thinking we were primitive because we hadn't reached the stars, but we survived on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight enemies we couldn't see. We mastered the art of turning strength against itself. And now, we've mastered you. In orbit, Grok faced a terrible truth. His mighty army, the pride of the Ravager Empire, was falling apart. Not from human weapons or technology, but from something far more powerful, human understanding of the mind itself. The greatest warriors in the galaxy were learning a harsh lesson. Physical strength means nothing when your mind betrays you. Commander Grok stood on his ship's bridge, watching his mighty invasion force fall apart. His warriors were sick from human bacteria, their systems crippled by human hackers, and their minds broken by human psychological warfare. For the first time in Ravager history, he considered the unthinkable. Retreat. Prepare withdrawal protocols, he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. But humanity wasn't finished. In the Mountain Command Center, Commander Anderson looked at his tactical display. All pieces were in position. Begin Operation Endgame, he ordered. Show them why you never corner a human. Around the world, resistance cells emerged from hiding. The time for subtle tactics was over. Now, humans would show the aliens why their species had survived every threat Earth had thrown at them for millions of years. In New York, Tom Wilson led his team in attacking a Ravager stronghold. The aliens expected another clever trap, but instead found humans charging straight at them. Their superior strength meant nothing. They were too sick from engineered bacteria to use it. Their advanced weapons were useless, disabled by human hackers. "Forward," Tom shouted, leading the charge. His team carried simple weapons, modified earth guns that fired bullets made from materials that could pierce Ravager armor. They had learned this from studying the alien metal's molecular structure. In her lab, Dr. Miller watched his computer screens light up. "The bioweapons have reached maximum effectiveness," he reported. "Their immune systems are completely compromised. Even their genetic enhancements are working against them now." Lisa's voice came over the command channel. "All their communication networks are down. Their coordination is gone. Each unit is fighting alone." The Ravager warriors, once proud and unstoppable, found themselves facing their worst nightmare. Humans attacked from every direction, using everything they had learned over weeks of studying their enemy. Each human strike team knew exactly where to hit for maximum damage. In orbit, Grok's ship shuddered as human rockets, simple chemical missiles carrying special payloads, struck its hull. The warship's advanced shields had been disabled by human hackers. Its point defense systems had been tricked by decoys. Now the mighty vessel was being damaged by weapons its crew had dismissed as primitive. "Impossible," Grok roared, watching more ships go dark. "How can they be beating us with such simple weapons?" The answer came from his own tactical officer. "They're not simple, Commander. Every attack is precisely calculated. They studied us, learned our weaknesses. Everything they're using was designed specifically to defeat us." On the ground, the final battle raged. Ravager warriors found their strength, technology, and training meant nothing against an enemy that had spent weeks preparing their downfall. Humans struck from sewers, rooftops, and hidden bunkers. Each attack was different. There was no pattern to learn, no strategy to counter. In the command center, Anderson watched the enemy forces crumble. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the strongest warrior isn't the one with the biggest muscles or the best weapons. It's the one who knows exactly how to defeat their enemy." Grok's ship rocked with another explosion. His mighty invasion force was in ruins. The strongest warriors in the galaxy were being defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. As his ship's systems failed one by one, he realized his fatal mistake. They had judged humanity by their technology, by their physical strength, by their apparent primitiveness. They'd never considered that these humans had survived on a deadly world, fighting and adapting for millions of years. Every weakness the Ravagers had seen was actually a strength in disguise. As his ship began to break apart, Grok sent one final message to the Empire. "Do not underestimate Earth. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered." The message never reached the Empire. Human hackers intercepted it and replaced it with their own. The last 5 Ravager ships limped away from Earth's orbit, their once proud hulls scarred and broken. Inside, the surviving warriors nursed their wounds and their shattered pride. They had come expecting an easy conquest. They were fleeing from the most devastating defeat in their species' history. In the Mountain Command Center, Commander Anderson watched them go. "Should we shoot them down?" asked Lieutenant Rogers. "We have the capability." Anderson shook his head. "No. Let them run. But first," he nodded to Lisa Wong at her computer station, "send our message." The fleeing Ravager ships suddenly found their communication systems activated against their will. On every screen, in perfect Ravager language, appeared humanity's first official message to the galaxy. "To all who watch the stars and dream of conquest, we are humanity. We have walked this earth for millions of years, surviving everything our world could throw at us. We chose peace, but we mastered war. We appear primitive, but that is our greatest deception. Come in peace, and you will find friends. Come in war, and you will find your doom. Think carefully before you return." The message repeated in every known galactic language, broadcasting on all frequencies. Human hackers made sure it would reach every corner of known space. In his hidden laboratory, Dr. Miller studied the last tissue samples from the defeated Ravagers. Their genetic enhancements made them strong, he noted in his final report, but they never understood that true strength comes from adaptation, not modification. Dr. Emma Thompson added her own observations. They thought their warrior culture made them invincible. Instead, it made them predictable. They never learned that the most dangerous enemy is the one who can think differently. The cleanup began. Around the world, humans emerged from their hidden bunkers and underground cities. They found a changed world, but not the ruined one the Ravagers had planned to leave. Instead, they had proven that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to unite and adapt when threatened. In New York, Tom Wilson helped clear away the wreckage of a fallen alien ship. They thought we were primitive because we hadn't reached the stars, he said to his team. They never understood that we were learning, watching, preparing. Every satellite we launched, every probe we sent to Mars, we were studying space, learning its dangers. Commander Anderson made his final report to the world's leaders. The Ravagers were just the first. Others will come, but now the galaxy knows. Earth is not an easy target. We are not primitive. We are not weak. We are humanity. In orbit, automated satellites began broadcasting a continuous message to the stars, not in radio waves or simple signals, but in complex patterns that showed humanity's true technological capability. They had hidden their advancement, waiting for the day they would need it. The message was simple. We were never primitive. We were patient. We learned from every species that thought they could conquer us. Now we know their weaknesses, their technologies, their fears. We chose to stay on Earth, not because we couldn't leave, but because we were preparing. The galaxy's strongest warriors came to Earth. None lived to tell the tale. Remember this. In the ruins of the final battle, a young girl found a piece of Ravager armor. She picked it up, studying its advanced materials and complex design. Why did they think we were weak? She asked her father. He smiled, taking the armor piece. Because they looked at our buildings, our machines, our bodies. They never looked at our minds, our will, our spirit. They thought strength meant muscles and weapons. They never understood that true strength comes from here. He tapped his head, then his heart. The galaxy had learned a crucial lesson. Never judge a species by their apparent technology. Never assume physical strength means victory. And most importantly, never, ever underestimate humanity. Earth had won its first galactic war. It would not be the last. But now the galaxy knew. Humans were not prey. They were the most dangerous predators of all.